Morning all. I'm going to start with a few words. I'll hand over to Ros and then David can do something on ComSec. Let me know when you're good to go. Hello Tim. Rachel, hello. Well, today is an important day for the people of Queensland. It's the day that we can see just how deep the problem is at Caboolture. And we want to see the report released in full. We don't want to see it sanitised. We don't want to put it through the spin cycle. We want to see the details of that report in full. And we owe it to those victims. There are people who have suffered in silence, and today will be the day that they get to realise whether or not the government sees this as a medical issue or a political issue. And we owe it to them. There's been too many stories of people who've had their lives turned inside out by some of these surgeries. And if we've got a doctor death operating again in Queensland, we owe it to these victims and future patients to fix it. We don't want to see this become a political issue. We don't want the lens to be solely focused on how it looks for the government. This is about how it is for people. And we're asking the report to be released in full so we can absorb it, we can ask questions about it this week, and then the government can map out their strategy to fix it. Before I hand over to Ros, I want to talk about Queensland's stubbornly low vaccination rate at present. And again, I'm going to ask Queenslanders, please do your bit for your state and get vaccinated. And if you're having doubts, go and talk to a medical professional and you'll come to the same conclusion that I have, that it's safe and it's important. So please do it for the small and family business owner at the end of the street and the people they employ. Do it for someone interstate who you want to be able to reconnect with, but please just get it done. And today the Deputy Premier's in Mackay, and I welcome that. And I was there yesterday speaking to the local councils. There's real fear amongst particularly some of the discrete communities. Those Indigenous leaders are genuinely scared about their low vaccination rate and what it means for their people. And I want to see the government give people a pathway out of the pandemic that chooses hope over fear. And clearly the roadshow of the last week hasn't moved the needle. The only way that we're going to do it is to give people confidence in getting the vaccine. So we've pointed out why it's stubbornly low, and again, I'm going to call it for what it is, the Premier's demonisation of AstraZeneca early, where she refused to get it. That you criticise one vaccine, you criticise them all. Now, I want people to understand that they're safe and effective, and that's important. But maybe it's time to change gears. And my style always is, if I'm criticising, I'll give a suggestion. I would like to see the government roll out a campaign where medical experts are showing people why it's important to get vaccinated. Indigenous people in the medical field, multicultural people in the medical field, Queenslanders in the medical profession who people trust. Let's put them on TV, let's put them in newspapers, let's put them on radio, let's put them throughout social media. Let's show people why it is safe and effective. Clearly, politicians going around the state haven't had the desired effect. So let's look for every opportunity to give people the confidence so that 2022 doesn't define us in the way that 21 has by disease. We're bigger than this, and we're prouder than this, and we're more caring than this. And I want people to get confidence to go and get vaccinated so we can get on with life. Over to you, Ross.
Well, today it's almost 2 months since allegations were made about botched surgeries at Caboolture Hospital. Today we want to see the report in full. We don't want to see a sanitised, deodorised version put through the spin cycle. We want to know what actually occurred and what this government has done to make sure it never occurs again. The timeline, on the 30th of August, it was raised in Parliament that there were issues with patient safety at Caboolture. The Health Minister at the time basically called myself and the patients liars. By the next day there was a hotline set up, and by the day after that there was a review into Caboolture Hospital. With further pressure put on by the LNP after our health town hall at Caboolture, that review was extended by 2 weeks. Now, we want to make sure that everyone who can be heard has been heard, and that there has been solutions and changes at that hospital if that is what is necessary. Thanks. David?
Thanks, Ros. ComSec's State of the State report is out today. And it makes, again, it continues to make for grim reading, Queensland is the second worst performing economy in the nation, behind even New South Wales and Victoria that have been locked down for months. The state government was slow to identify that business needed help at the start of the pandemic. They were slow to get money out the door to business, and they've been very slow in delivering a roadmap out of the pandemic for business. Across regional Queensland, we know there's a housing shortage crisis, there's a labour shortage crisis, both skilled and unskilled, and there is a crisis in confidence in the long-term recovery for the Queensland economy. Queensland deserves better than the second worst performing economy in the country, and the government needs to step up, provide some vision and deliver a better outcome for all Queenslanders. David.
Questions? Oh, I'd be disappointed in that, because this date was signalled and it was said by the chair of the board as well as the minister that it would be released in full. Now, if it's going to be released in full, I don't know why it would have to be debated in cabinet and taken through and we get an abridged version. That doesn't make sense. I'm not saying that the government shouldn't have time to be able to formulate a response out of it, and I would like to think that we can play a part in that. But this week is Parliament, and those victims of the alleged botched surgery, well, we owe it to them to be able to ask some questions. So let's put the report today on the table, and then we will ask questions about it, and the response will be a stronger one as a result of it. So anything that doesn't release it today is a dead set cop-out, and we'll be calling it as such. Well, I've reflected on this many times, and if you look at the AHPPC guidelines, that talks about the need for frontline staff to be mandated. And we're very comfortable with that. But that's not the question the government is answering. What I want to know is what the impacts are on frontline services. And I've asked the government to show the modelling. Now, there's a myriad of ways that they can get around this, and a myriad of ways that they can work with people throughout the health system, and indeed across other frontline services, which this document reflects on. And look, everybody's signed on to this. That's not the issue in dispute. The issue I have is, what is the government's position to guarantee services for the Queensland community? And they still haven't answered that. Every time they answer it by saying, does the LNP support frontline staff being vaccinated? Well, of course we do, and Roz has been talking about that for the better part of 2 months. But I'm going to ask the question again. What modelling has been done to show the impact of frontline services? What conversations are being had with staff to ensure that people can make a contribution who are not in those roles? They're the questions that every Queenslander wants answered. We're in the middle of a health crisis. I don't think there's too many Queenslanders who believe that we should be having less health staff at the moment rather than more. Yep. Unhelpful. And anyone who seeks to use their platform to undermine confidence in the vaccine is unhelpful. And I don't care what side of politics they're on. People need to stand up. This is the hour of need for their community, and they've got to be bigger than that. And I'm sorry, but I saw it at the start of this pandemic with the Premier. And I wrote to the Premier, and I didn't make it public, but I said to the Premier, let's both go and get vaccinated, side by side, send a message across the political divide. I didn't get an answer. Instead, what I got is a history on why not to get vaccinated. It included prioritising the flu jab over COVID, which no medical document says to do. Then there was the aggressive dog that caused the need for a tetanus shot, and then there was the a little too close to Tokyo, so I need to get a different type of vaccine. All of that undermined confidence, and I find it refreshing that the government's hit the road in the last couple of weeks, but it hasn't moved the needle. So let's look at other strategies. Now, no doubt today, the Deputy Premier, when he's asked about what about a campaign getting medical professionals to articulate why we should get vaccinated, no doubt the Deputy Premier will come up with a list of reasons why that suggestion won't work over to him. But we'll keep making them, and we'll keep putting them forward until the government realises they have an issue at the moment. And I am deeply concerned about Queensland's vaccination rates, particularly in regional Queensland and especially in Indigenous communities. And I'm going to keep putting forward suggestions to make that problem go away. Because I'm not going to have another year where we as a state live on our knees and we as a nation are defined by a disease. That is a crazy scenario. And I see the only way out of that is to have confidence in the vaccine rollout strategy and for people to go and get vaccinated. And it doesn't work when politicians go into town and scare people as to what a grim Christmas looks like. Give them hope over fear. And if it's confidence in the vaccine that's lacking, give them people who they trust. But one way or another, we've got to find another way out of this, because what's happening at the moment isn't cutting the mustard. My message is the same to anybody, and that is give people medical advice, not your own political advice, and send them to doctor rather than Dr. Google. That's a good start. And unfortunately, there's too many mixed messages about it. It's coming from social media, and leaders who are fueling that are part of the problem. And I reflect on a young bloke called Stephen, who I met in Yarrabah the other day, who had snuck away from home to go to the clinic to get advice because he's so scared about getting vaccinated. And he didn't get vaccinated that day, and he got the advice, and he didn't tell anyone he was going there, so troubled about the backlash from his mob that he had to sneak away to get the vaccination advice. And that young fella wants to get vaccinated. But every time he listens to somebody, every time he gets onto social media, he hears another reason why he shouldn't. And we as leaders owe it to people like Stephen and others to give them confidence. And if people don't believe politicians, which is a pretty normal course of action, if people don't believe politicians, well, let's give them another opportunity. And maybe that's medical professionals. And medical professionals across different backgrounds, different genders, different socioeconomic status. Let's give them every opportunity to get their advice from somebody they trust. And one way or another, the government's got to change gears, because otherwise we're going to be in a lot of trouble. And I don't want to see Queensland defined by disease for any longer. Any person who undermines a vaccine rollout strategy is part of the problem. Any person. Well, anyone who does. Anyone who says things to undermine the vaccine strategy is part of the problem, and that's, well, I believe a lot of people are, and let me, the Premier from the beginning, George Christensen now, and others who seek to make political hay out of it, and I'm not one of them, and I haven't spoken with forked tongue, and I haven't said one thing in one part of the state and one thing in another, and I've been consistent from day one. And I've said to everybody, go and get vaccinated. But if you don't have confidence in it, go and talk to a health professional rather than doing it on your phone through Facebook or Google. And if there was enough of those messages, we wouldn't have a stubbornly low rate. And it's not just in Mackay we have a stubbornly low rate. It's every one of our discrete communities, every one of them, and we only have data for 2, which is deeply concerning. I'm going to ask the government, and by government I put plural there, federal and state. I'd like to see that figure every single day. I want to know what the vaccination rate is for every community, not just Yarrabah and Cherbourg. I want the others as well, every single day. And that way there we can hold people accountable for the strategies and talk to the community about lifting that low rate. No, the government needs to work with business to give business confidence to be able to invest, trade and grow. And at the moment, the business community are saying, well, we just don't have any confidence in what the government's asking. And I'm not going to sign on for businesses to become COVID cops. That's not the role of business. And the government's got to sort out where business fits in that. No, I don't. And I'm never going to give up on allowing people to choose hope over fear. And if we are clear in our messaging, it is never too late to get people to come on the journey. But every day that we have a mixed message, every day the government moves the goalposts, every day there's somebody else talking bad about a vaccine, is one less person who goes to get vaccinated. And we need confidence now more than ever. Thanks very much.
Thanks, everyone.